Picture a 12-year-old girl. She is sitting alone in her bedroom. On her phone, a flood of cruel messages keeps coming, and she does not know how to make it stop. In another home, a 10-year-old boy is watching a video on YouTube. It has bright colors and cheerful music, and is teaching you something deeply and quietly wrong. And somewhere else, a house that looks perfectly normal from the outside. A family sits down together for dinner. Every single person at the table is looking at the screen. No one is speaking. No one is looking up. These are not horror stories pulled from the headline. These are not worst case scenario. These are ordinary evenings in ordinary homes happening right now in the neighborhood that look exactly like yours. And let's be honest, being a kid these days isn't easy at all. I still remember when I was little, we used to hang out with other kids in the neighborhood, climbing trees, picking flowers. Back then, none of us had phone. Just getting to play online games for an hour already felt like a pure happiness. We had never even heard about something called Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. But look at kids nowadays. They don't really play those kind of game anymore. Instead, the childhood games we used to play in real life are now being recreated on what? Roblox? A generation growing up in the digital age, when technology is advancing, everything is more accessible than ever. Yes, it is so much easier for them to learn to explore the world right now. But along with that comes a lot of hidden dangers constantly lurking around children. And over time, those threats have only become more sophisticated. The internet was not built for children. More precisely, the version of the internet that children now live inside. The smartphone power, the algorithm-driven, always-on version was not built for them in mind at all. It was built for engagement, for profit, for scale. And children are not the intended user of this system. They are the most vulnerable ones caught inside it. And for years, parents were told to trust the platform, trust the age limits, trust that the companies behind this product had their children's best interests at heart. But study after study now confirm the same thing. That trust was misplaced. I did a bit of research. While I can't cover every single danger lurking for children on social media, I hope this video can give you a clearer understanding of why we need to protect kids from the online risk. And I think this doesn't have to be a video just for parents. If you don't have kids, watch this to be more aware for the sake of your younger sibling or relatives, children who are still in school, or simply watch it to better understanding a pressing issue that affecting the entire world. 10 years ago, 1 in 6 American students had experienced cyberbullying. Today, that number has doubled. A new national survey from the Cyberbullying Research Center, polling more than 3,000 middle and high school students, found that 1 in 3 students reported being cyberbullied in just the past 30 days.
I got a heart attack.
And this isn't just an American story. The World Health Organization, WHO, recently released one of the largest studies of its kind, spanning 44 countries and nearly 280,000 young people across Europe and Central Asia, reached alarming conclusion. Roughly 1 in 6 adolescents has experienced cyberbullying, and that number has been climbing steadily since 2018. To put it simply, what was 1 in 6 is now 1 in 3. Wow. And this is not a phase. This is a trend, and it is moving in the wrong direction. Unlike the bullying of previous generations, cyberbullying does not end when the school bell rings. It follows children into their bedrooms, onto their pillows, into whatever they thought was their safe space. Victims cannot walk away, and attacker can be anonymous, and the cruelty can be seen by everyone the child knows. Some impacts of cyberbullying we can mention are depression, anxiety, increased suicidal thinking among victims, and suicide attempts. Now, let's take a moment to look back. When you were in school, did you ever experience or witness cyberbullying? I think the answer may be yes, for most of us. For me, the answer is still yes, but not much. Maybe because back then social media was still new and the way people interacted was a lot more, innocent and natural than it is now. But just a few weeks ago, I was scrolling through Instagram Reels when I came across a video of a Vietnamese girl living in the US. She was replying to negative comments. She looked around like 12 or 30 years old, like, I don't know, making simple daily life like vlog or contents, like kids style contents. But she speaks Vietnamese in her vlog, and since she was born and raised in the US, so her Vietnamese wasn't perfect. And to me, I still can understand what she's saying. It's completely normal, it's fun in a very fun way. But when she showed the negative comments people had left, I honestly couldn't help but say like, oh my god, how can people bully a child like that online?
First of all, ew. Second of all, ew.
Like, the words that they used were, I'm trying to find a word for it, but their comments were so vulgar. I don't even know if I pronounced that word right. And disgusting that even I'm just reading them through the screen. I felt so uncomfortable, and my eyebrows were literally skin-shaped to each other. Like this. My face was literally like this. Like my eyebrow like that. And I can't even imagine how she must have felt. And they were criticizing her for not speaking Vietnamese perfectly. And I was thinking like, seriously, don't you have anything better to do than write things like that to a child?
That shit is so disrespectful. So disrespectful. That shit got me so...
And yes, that was a real experience I had. And what's even sadder is that there are so many other children going through the same thing every day, every hour, every second, all around the world. No matter how aware you are of how toxic social media can be, there will always be moments that shock you, which is how cruel it can get. Picture a typical American teenager today. From the moment they wake up to the moment they fall asleep, they spend somewhere between 3 and 5 hours on social media every single day. Back in 2015, about 1 in 4, 24% teens said they were online almost constantly. Today, that's closer to 1 in 3, which means 35%, and the gap just keeps widening. The screen time alone isn't the whole story. The American Psychological Association found that teenagers who use social media the most are significantly more likely to describe their own mental health as poor. Most strikingly, they are twice as likely to express thoughts of suicide or engage in self-harm compared to teens who use it the least.
You cannot be for real. Oh my god, you for real. No, you for fake. No, you for real.
And the WHO latest data drawn from nearly 280,000 young people across Europe as another layer. Back in 2018, about 7% adolescents show signs of what researchers call problematic social media use. They are unable to control it, suffering because of it, and yet unable to stop. Wow. By 2024, that number has risen to 11%, and it has climbed every single year in between. And I believe this is not coincidence. This is a pattern. Social media platforms are not neutral spaces. They are engineered with precision to maximize the time users spend on them. And for children and teenagers whose brains are still developing impulse control and emotional regulation, these design choices are not just manipulative. They are potentially harmful by design. Psychologists describe a state called ambient anxiety, a constant low-risk threat from being permanently reachable, permanently visible, and permanently measured by likes and comments. Every post becomes a social test. Every notification carries meaning. And in case you don't know this, in March 2026, Meta, including Facebook and Instagram, and YouTube lost a lawsuit in California, USA, over claim that their platform design are addictive and harmful to children's mental health. The court ordered a total compensation of $6 million, with Meta responsible for 70% and YouTube for 30%. And I think you guys probably know this. The mental health crisis is real, we all know, but it's not hitting everyone equally. Among teenage girls, the pressure is especially visible. A 2025 Pew Research survey found that 1 in 3, 34% girls, say social media makes her feel worse about her own life. Among boys, that number dropped to 1 in 5, about like 20%. But the numbers only tell a part of the story. You know, like every day, girls are being fed a stream of content by algorithm designed to keep them scrolling. Content that pushes increasingly extreme beauty standards, that rank and measure appearance, that invite public comparison at the exact age when a young person is still figuring out who they are. And this is not happening in the background. Is it happening on the phone, in their pocket, every hour of every day? The psychological damage is real and is immeasurable and is growing. The term AI slop was coined by tech journalist Cassie Newton in late 2024. It refers to the flood of low-quality, mass-produced AI-generated content designed not to inform or entertain, but to generate clicks and watch time as cheaply as possible. For adults, AI slop is an annoyance. For toddlers and young children, it's maybe a developmental crisis.
Tung 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 sahur. No.
Think about what your child or your sibling or your younger relative watches on YouTube. According to late 2025 report from the Catwin Company, roughly 1 in 5 videos now appearing in YouTube's recommendation feed is low quality and AI generated. For a child watching 2 hours a day, that means nearly 24 minutes of AI generated content every single day without a human ever being involved.
That's suspicious.
Here's a number that puts that in perspective for you guys. One channel called Yojo Funland uploaded more than 10,000 AI-generated videos in just 7 months. That is roughly 50 news videos a day, every day for 7 months straight. Now consider this. Sesame Street, one of the most carefully crafted children program ever made, spent 20 years on YouTube building its library. It published over 3,900 videos. A nameless, faceless algorithm just lapped it more than twice over. No writers, no educators, no one asking if it's good for a child. Just content produced at a speed no human team could ever match and fed directly to the youngest viewer on the platform. I think that you have probably heard of the term brain rot universe. In case you haven't, then it means that it's a space filled with characters whose names are ridiculously long and basically meaningless. I used to teach at an English center, and I had a student who could perfectly read and remember all the names of the brain rot character. Like for example, Tung Tung Sour, sorry, I have to look at the screen. I cannot remember this name. Tralalero, tralala, like, what the fuck is that? Ballerina Capuchina, Bombardiro, Crocodilo. What's that even mean? Anyway, and so on. But you know what? Somehow that same student couldn't remember the vocabulary we had studied, even though it was reviewed at the beginning of every class. And you know, young children, they cannot tell the difference between a trusted human voice and an AI-generated character. Actually, we can. Don't even say children, okay? They cannot fact-check what they are being told. They have no filter, no defense, and no way to know when they are being misled. At that age, they just simply believe what they see. Some numbers are hard to say out loud, and these are some of them. Research constantly find that 9 out of 10
boys
and 6 out of 10 girls are exposed to pornography before they turn 18. The average age of first exposure is 12 years old. Some study put it even earlier. And for most of them, it was not a choice. More than half of all teenagers say they first encounter with pornographic content online was completely accidental. A third of students report seeing explicit material directly on social media apps, platforms with no real age verification, and algorithm designed to keep pushing content further and further. No warning, no filter, no one checking who was on the other side of the screen. And then there's a darker end of this story. In 2024 alone, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children received report of more than 62 million images of suspected child sexual abuse material. 62 million in a single year. Can you imagine that? The same center also received more than 500,000 reports of adults attempting to lure children online. That's nearly 3 times the number reported just 1 year earlier. 3 times in 1 year. Oh my god.
Calling the police. Hello? Yes, this video right here. Jail time.
Are those numbers like igniting any feeling in you? Like 62 million and 500,000 report of adult attempting to lure children online? Like, excuse me, what the? A child brain is not built to process what pornography depicts. Research showed that early and repeated exposure is linked to distorted idea about relationship, unrealistic expectation, and in some cases, addiction. And in the content itself is not what many people assume it to be. A 2022 study found that more than half of teenagers who had been exposed to pornography reported seeing violent content, including depiction of choking, pain, and what appeared to be assault. The funny thing is that even if you don't interact with the content, somehow they still show up on your For You page. Like, I never interact with the Pop House content. If you don't know what the Pop House is, it's a house on TikTok where a bunch of women gather and they do OnlyFans. Anyway, I remember like just one day they just appear on my For You page, and just imagine your kids seeing that, girl checking their ass. Like, even they don't interact with that content, you know, the algorithm just push it there, just serve it to them.
This is how I press it. Ah! What the fuck? Alright, look.
Not every harm make headlines. Some damage is quieter than that, slower, and in some way harder to reverse. Consider what is happening inside a family home. A 2024 report surveying around 1,000 families in the United Kingdom found that parents are increasingly worried about the effect of screens on family life, on concentration, on health, on the simple act of being together in the same room. The recommended limit for recreational screen time, according to the American Academy of
Pediatric.
It's 2 hours a day for older children, but we all know the reality. Many teenagers are now spending 5, 6, or more hours on social media alone, and that is before you count schoolwork, streaming, or gaming. Let's just pause for a second. Can you show me your screen time? Can you show me your screen time? What is your screen time? If you're like 2-digit number, I'm afraid that we cannot talk.
I want to end me.
No, I'm just kidding. But since I asked you guys to show me your screen time, I'm gonna show you my screen time. I really don't know where can I see my screen time. Can you see this? I mean, like, it's today. I don't know how can I see like last week. Yeah, I want to see last week, but anyways, I don't know. But like the last time I checked, sometimes it was like 3 hour average, 3 or 4 hours. And today is like 33 minutes. I think it's wrong. I don't have that average screen time that low, okay? 30 minutes, like no way. Let's get back to the topic. Here is the part that's easy to overlook. One of the strongest predictors of how much time a child spends on screens is actually how much time their parents spend on screen. So children do not do what we tell them. They do what they see us do. And when a parent reaches for their phone at the dinner table, that's his
Lesson.
And for many families, screen have become something else entirely. A 2025 survey of American parents with children under 13 found that nearly half rely on screen time every day to help manage their parenting responsibilities. 1 in 4 said they have turned to screen because they simply could not afford childcare. Screen have become the most common babysitter in the world. And unlike a babysitter, they are not neutral. They are not passive. They are designed by some of the most sophisticated engineer life to hold a child attention for as long as possible. Around the world, lawmakers are introducing some of the most significant child protection legislation in a generation.
Logical games on yourself.
On December 10, 2025, Australia became the first country in the world to formally enforce a nationwide social media ban for children under the age of 16. The law applied to nearly every major platform you can name: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, Reddit. And tech companies that fail to enforce the ban face fines of up to 30 million US dollar. And critically, the burden falls on the platform, not on children, not on their parents. And the response was immediate. On the very first day, more than 200,000 TikTok accounts in Australia were deactivated.
Oh my god! Wow!
And Australia was not alone for long. In March 2025, Indonesia became one of the first countries in Asia to pass binding child protection rules for the digital space, and the first in the entire region to base the rules on what regulator call age appropriate design. In plain terms, if a product is likely to be used by anyone under 18, it has to be built with that child in mind from the start. The regulation applies to every platform, every app, every digital service, public or private, that a child might reasonably access. Before a child can access any of these products, a parent must give explicit consent. If that consent does not arrive within 24 hours, access is denied. The law also prohibits the platform from building profiles on children for commercial purposes, not targeting, no data harvesting. Platforms operating in Indonesia have until March 2027 to fully comply. The EU Digital Service Act published formal child protection guidelines in July 2025, requiring platforms to address grooming, cyberbullying, addictive design, and exploitative advertising.
France
Passing its own law mandating real age verification for pornographic sites. Several major platforms chose to block France entirely rather than comply.
IDGAF. I don't give a fuck. Period.
In the UK, the Online Safety Act is now in full implementation, placing a legal duty of care on platforms to protect children. TikTok has already received one of the largest fines ever issued by the UK data regulator for failing to enforce its own age restriction. And even in the United States, California passed stringent child protection legislation in 2024. The era of platforms policing themselves is closing, and governments on both sides of the Atlantic are making sure they know it.
Ooh! This is where the real power is!
Let's be clear about something. The internet, social media is not the enemy. It carries knowledge, creativity, and somehow genuine human connection. For adults with developed judgment, with a settled sense of who they are, it can be one of the most powerful tools ever built. But children are not small adults. Their brain is still forming and their identity are still being built. They have not yet developed the capacity to resist manipulation, to process extreme content, or to recognize when a system has been designed to exploit them. So for them, the internet as it currently exists is not a playground, and the evidence is no longer
ambiguous.
So we have talked about cyberbullying, mental health problem, AI-generated content, pornographic, and family are losing connection. And nowadays around the world, governments are beginning to act. Parents are beginning to demand accountabilities. And for the first time, the company that built this system and profited from them are facing consequences instead of applause. The question is not whether children deserve protection from the worst of what the internet has become, because that answer is not in dispute. The question is whether we will move quickly enough for the children who are online right now, tonight, in their bedroom, alone with their screens. Some of them are not browsing, some of them are struggling, and some of them are waiting for someone to notice that they need help.
Come on, monsters. Let's go. Everyone better be jumping.